What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. It's finally here, the huge mid-season update, complete with the mage update that is affecting 16 champions, the massive objective and jungle changes, and some crazy item changes and overall changes to boot. This is probably one of the biggest patches I've ever seen outside of the preseason, and it's going to be awesome. And among all of the changes that take place on any given patch, there's also a whole lot of hidden or indirect changes that take place as a result, that still often have just as big of an impact on the meta as a whole. And as well, I gotta give some big props to ProGuides.com for helping me with the editing on this video. They recently released a new service that allows you to ask questions to high rank players and get a response almost instantly, and I think it's pretty damn awesome. But you don't have to take it from me because they got a free trial that gets you full access, so you can check them out and decide for yourself if you like it or not. And without further ado, let's get started. The first hidden or indirect buff taking place is one that might be a little bit obvious to some of you because it's the champions who do well versus immobile mages. With this huge mage update, you can be certain of one thing: everyone's going to go out and rush and play their new favorite mage champion and experience their favorite updated mages for themselves. Regardless of how good they are, people are going to play these immobile mages that were updated a lot. And I do mean a lot, especially in the first 2 weeks after this patch. So during this time, you have a really awesome window to play champions that just counter the heck out of immobile mages. This is typically going to be your hyper mobile assassins, especially in the mid lane, stuff like Talon, Zed, and Kassadin. These champions are going to be your ticket to Freelo on this patch especially, and for probably a long time to come too, since they perform really well against pretty much all of the champions that were updated, with the exception of just Malzahar, I guess, who is kind of designed to do well versus assassins. And since the mage updates are so exciting, since they're so hyped up, the updated champions are going to just skyrocket in popularity, so you should be getting some really awesome matchups in lane to help you snowball just about every single game. Another indirect buff that is taking place on this patch is one that I feel might go a little bit underappreciated, as it's the mage champions who did not receive updates, especially the ones in the top lane. The new AP items are a huge deal for any character wanting to build them, and although not every item might be overpowered or even buffed honestly, the amount of versatility and options that you now have in your build path as a whole as an AP champion is just mind-blowing. It's a boost to anyone wanting to build AP in their item path. And the reason why I say top lane especially is because a lot of the magic resistance items got nerfed as well, especially Spectre's Cowl. So when playing a mage in the top lane, your matchup versus tanks is going to be a lot easier to handle, and you won't get as outscaled in the late game anymore either. Although not every single AP item is an improvement over the older version of it, the fact remains that the AP items as a whole, especially the build diversity and versatility, has improved by quite a lot. And that's something that pretty much every AP champion can take benefit from, not just the 16 champions who were directly updated on this patch. As well, going off of that, another group of champions that benefit a lot from this patch are the poke support type of champions. Think champions like Karma support, Sona support, Lulu support, and maybe even stuff like Brandon Vel'Koz support. This indirect buff is happening for a few reasons. First off, these champions are given what is essentially an entirely new item that is shaping up to be pretty sweet actually, and I'm talking about the new Athene's Unholy Grail. This item benefits their playstyle a ton and will be an awesome pickup on the more utility focused poke support champions. At the same time, we also have a lovely nerf to Soraka that is taking place on this patch, who's probably one of the biggest counter picks to a poke heavy support champion, since she just kind of out heals all of the damage. And there's also a nerf to Taric too, who might not have been the best counter pick to a poke support on paper, but the fact is that he was just so freaking broken that he was kind of a counter pick to everyone. And the nerfs toned him down quite a bit, so now the meta is shaping up to favor the poke supports a little bit more based on the matchups and the items. Another group of champions getting a step up in this patch are objective-focused junglers. So this is stuff like Nunu especially, champions who are good at farming and controlling objectives, especially in the early game. Really just the junglers who want to actually jungle, rather than the junglers who want to gank a lot and camp lanes and snowball. And this is happening for a multitude of reasons, all of which have to do with the way the new jungle is shaping up to be. First off, counter jungling is becoming easier because of the jungle timers, and it's also becoming a little bit more rewarding too, especially in the first clear. So champions who can do that effectively now have much better ways to get advantages rather than just non-stop ganking lanes. As well, the new Rift Herald has become an insanely powerful tool that being able to secure is a massive deal. Games can be snowballed entirely off of the Rift Herald now, since the buff lasts for 20 minutes and it persists through death. That contesting it early will be really important, and it's going to become a huge objective that you just cannot ignore. And having a jungler that is weak at contesting that is going to be a weakness for your team. And as well, the dragons now are a little bit more important, and as a result, there are just more jungle objectives to take across the entire map. And I'm really interested in this direction that Riot is taking with the jungle, because it looks like they really want to make it so that you can come out ahead as a jungler without having to resort to just constant ganking, which is really cool to see different styles of jungling becoming relevant, especially for solo queue. And I definitely think that these jungle changes on this patch are pretty awesome. Next up, we're looking at another group of junglers, this time the ranged attack speed junglers. So this is champions like Kindred especially, but essentially it's just any jungler who has a ranged basic attack that wanted to build Devourer before this patch. The new Devourer replacement, Bloodrazor, is a pretty solid item, but it's especially solid on ranged champions, who never really benefited from being sated on Devourer anyway, since they only got the proc once every 4 hits. As my man Pansar Dragon talked about in his video, this new Bloodrazor is awesome, and it's a big improvement for ranged champions in general, since they get the effect on every single hit, and the mechanics work just a lot better with them. So with their main item improving by a lot, it's only natural to see the ranged attack speed focused junglers become more successful as a result. And the next group of champions that we have that is receiving a hidden buff is late game scaling champions. This is an interesting one to consider that is happening for a lot of reasons. First off, you have the changes to turrets, which is essentially just a buff to the power, especially the damage, of the turrets. And it makes taking them down in the early game not only more difficult, but also less impactful and a lot less snowball-y. This buff to turrets makes it more difficult to snowball in the early game with a lead, while also making it easier to stall out the game and extend the game length since tower diving is a bit harder. And solo queue already is heavily prone to games being longer than they should be, and as a result this type of change is likely to have a big effect, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the average game length in solo queue increase by about 5 minutes or so after this patch, and the longer the game goes on, the better it is for those late game scaling champions. As well, the death timers between 20 to 35 minutes of every game are being reduced by a little bit, which once again contributes to games being a lot longer. Now, after killing opponents in the mid game, you'll have a smaller window of time to capitalize on the victory, take advantages, and ultimately end the game. So the shorter death timers means longer games, and thus, the late game scaling champions shine through. Speaking of late game scaling champions, we also have AD carries getting a bit of a step up on this patch. This change as well is happening for a couple of reasons. First off, we have the change to Guardian Angel. Guardian Angel's always been kind of a weird item, but it's a great defensive option on AD carries versus burst damage champions who fully unload their combo on someone and then don't really do that much for the rest of the fight. It's a great item for a squishy character since it's a great way to counter burst damage, and since the price is going down a ton, that'll make it much easier to itemize for when you need it as an AD carry. In addition, Sunfire Cape, a seriously powerful armor item, is taking a big hit on this patch, as are quite a few other tank items. So during teamfights as an AD carry, you'll probably kill tanks a bit faster now. But as well, some of the bruiser items are taking hits too. You got Sterix Gauge, you got the new Bloodrazor enchant that deals a lot less damage to AD carries than Devourer did. So once again, versus not only tanks, but some bruiser champions too, especially junglers, the AD carries will have an easier time killing them, but also avoiding being killed by them. And add into that the late game stuff that I mentioned previously, and it's a great patch if you're an AD carry main. And this next one's kind of just something I wanted to throw in for a little bit of fun, and it's also kind of true as well, I guess. And I'm talking about, of course, Mordekaiser. Maybe it's a little bit troll, but it's also kind of true to some extent, although it is maybe not that relevant. The Elder Dragon is being introduced on this patch as a huge new objective spawning at 35 minutes into the game. And the Elder Dragon is this huge massive dragon on steroids. And when Mordekaiser kills that dragon, he now gets a much more massive dragon ghost from killing that Elder Dragon. I think it has something like 30,000 HP, which is much more powerful than the regular old dragon ghost. So that's a pretty nice change from Mord you might not have considered that might actually make an impact occasionally. Overall, this patch is massive, so I tried to compile as many hidden buffs that I could come up with, but it's not impossible that maybe I missed a couple of the minor ones, just since there's such an insane amount of stuff that actually happened. But I do believe I covered all the major ones, And this video is getting pretty long, so let's just cut it here, I guess. Once again, a big thanks to ProGuides.com for helping me with the video. You can check them out with the link in the description. And if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. And if you didn't, hit that dislike. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.